The royal palace of Lithra gleamed under the light of two suns. Its tall towers stretched into the sky, and the walls shimmered with colors that shifted like liquid. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of rare alien flowers, and servants floated silently on small anti-gravity platforms, attending to the needs of the court. The queen's throne room was vast with a high ceiling that reflected light like a crystal dome. The court had gathered, murmuring anxiously. Something unusual had arrived in the capital, and whispers filled the air. The queen, a tall figure draped in robes of deep violet and silver, sat on her throne. Her eyes were sharp, and her aura commanded obedience and respect. She had ruled the empire of Lithra for decades, and few dared challenge her. Today, however, there was a question she could not answer, and it gnawed at her pride. "Who is he?" she demanded, her voice echoing through the hall. The court went silent. Some nobles looked nervously at one another, unsure if they should speak. The question was directed at her daughter, the princess, who stood calmly beside a tall human man. The princess's eyes sparkled with a mixture of pride and amusement. Her long hair shimmered in the sunlight, falling over her shoulders like liquid gold. She smiled softly, almost teasingly, as she replied, "The human I married." A ripple of shock ran through the court. Gasps, whispers, and hurried glances spread like wildfire. The queen's eyes narrowed. She had expected diplomats, traitors, perhaps even spies, but never a human. A creature her people barely understood and whose kind had never been welcome in Lithra. The human stepped forward, and the court saw him clearly for the first time. He was unlike any alien they had seen. His skin was pale, his hair dark, and his eyes deep brown. His clothes were simple but clean, and he carried himself with a quiet confidence that drew attention without arrogance. Some of the nobles whispered about his appearance, some in disbelief, others in curiosity. The princess moved closer to her human husband and placed a gentle hand on his arm. "Mother," she said softly, "he is more than you see. He has proven himself already. He saved lives during our journey, and he has my trust." The queen's expression softened slightly, but her voice remained firm. "Trust is earned, not given lightly. And you, human, what do you know of our ways? Our rules? Our people?" The human bowed respectfully, a gesture that surprised some of the court. "I may not understand everything," he said in clear, measured tones, "but I learn quickly. I have followed the princess's guidance, and I am willing to serve your court with honor." Some nobles snickered quietly. "Serve?" one whispered. "This human thinks he can walk among us like he belongs." Others frowned. They were not ready to accept an outsider, especially one so different. The princess raised her hand, silencing them. "He does belong," she said simply. "Not by blood, but by choice and by deeds. He will see that soon enough." The queen leaned forward slightly, studying the human. She was a ruler who valued strength and wisdom, and she could sense that this human possessed both in a strange, unfamiliar way. There was courage in his stance, patience in his voice, and a calm intelligence in his eyes. Yet she remained skeptical. Her empire had never seen humans before. Their history in her records was minimal, often filled with exaggeration or misunderstanding. To place trust in one was unheard of. "Very well," she said finally, her tone cautious but not unkind. "We will see if your actions match your words." The princess's smile widened and she nodded. "I am confident they will." The human looked around the hall, his gaze taking in the alien architecture, the floating servants, and the courtiers with their intricate clothing and unusual features. Some had 4 arms, some had translucent skin that revealed flowing colors beneath, and some had eyes that could see in ways humans could not imagine. Yet he did not falter. He stood tall, keeping his composure, and gave a respectful nod to each corner of the room. The queen gestured for the court to step aside. "Let him prove himself," she commanded. "Let us see if the human is worthy of the princess's trust and of our attention." A subtle tension filled the air. Some nobles muttered among themselves, while others watched in silence. The human's first task would be a trial of understanding the court's complex rules of etiquette and diplomacy. It was not dangerous in the physical sense, but for someone untrained in alien customs, one wrong move could bring dishonor or offense. The princess took her husband's hand and led him toward the ceremonial chamber. Along the way, she whispered, "Do not be afraid. You will learn quickly. Just be yourself and you will earn respect faster than you imagine." The human nodded. "I trust you," he said simply. His voice carried a quiet certainty that seemed to surprise even the princess. Inside the ceremonial chamber, the air shimmered with energy fields that responded to thought and intent. The walls displayed symbols that told stories of Lithera's history, victories, and challenges. The human's eyes widened, not in fear but in fascination. He had never seen technology combined with art in such a way. A noble stepped forward, his forearms folded behind him, his expression unreadable. "Human," he said, "to be accepted here you must understand our ways. We value logic, strategy, and courage. Show us that you can think, act, and survive as one of us." The human straightened. "I am ready to try." The trial began with questions designed to test his reasoning. The nobles asked about history, ethics, and strategy in hypothetical conflicts. The human listened carefully, pausing to consider each answer before speaking. He did not rely on brute intelligence alone. He applied empathy, insight, and an understanding of human nature that seemed foreign but effective in this alien context. One noble asked, "If two regions are in conflict, and one suffers more than the other, what is the fair solution?" The human paused, then replied, "A solution should protect life and restore balance. Both sides must be heard and the weak must be safeguarded. Justice is not winning. It is ensuring survival and peace," the court murmured. Some were impressed, some skeptical. The answer was not what they expected. Aliens often approached fairness through rigid laws and tradition, but the human spoke with a moral clarity that was unfamiliar, yet compelling. Next, the trial moved to physical skill. The human had to navigate a simulated alien environment, full of obstacles, traps, and challenges designed to test reflexes, endurance, and quick thinking. As he moved, he demonstrated a combination of agility, observation, and improvisation that surprised even the princess. Where an alien might rely on technology or instinct honed over centuries, he used simple tools and careful thinking. He adapted to each new challenge with remarkable speed. By the end of the day, the human had completed the tasks with success. He had avoided traps, solved problems that had confounded alien trainees, and shown a natural understanding of strategy and ethics. The princess watched with quiet pride, knowing that her human had impressed not only her, but some of the most critical members of her court. When they returned to the throne room, the queen studied him carefully. She saw the way he carried himself, the way he treated others with respect, and the quiet confidence that never wavered. Finally, she spoke. "You have done well today," she said, her voice measured. Perhaps there is more to humans than my record suggested." The princess smiled and took her husband's hand. "There is much more, mother. You will see it, and so will our court." The queen regarded him for a long moment, her sharp eyes searching for weaknesses, but she found none. For now, she would hold her judgment, but curiosity had replaced suspicion, and in the halls of Lithera, curiosity was often the first step toward respect. The human bowed slightly to the queen, then turned to the princess. "Thank you for trusting me," he said softly. The princess smiled, her heart light. "I knew you could do it. The court will follow once they see who you truly are." As they left the throne room, whispers followed them. "The human," some said, awe in their voices. "The human can survive here?" The human glanced at the court, his expression calm but alert. He was aware of the challenge ahead. He knew he had more to prove. But he also knew one thing clearly. He would not fail the princess, and he would not fail himself. And in the heart of the alien empire, a human had already begun to change the way they saw the universe. The palace corridors of Lithera stretched endlessly, filled with light that shimmered like liquid gold. Servants floated silently, carrying trays of exotic foods and tools, and the air buzzed faintly with energy from the palace's advanced systems. The princess led her human husband through the corridors, her hand resting lightly on his arm. Though the trial of thought and physical skill had gone well, the real challenge was just beginning. "You must learn our ways," she whispered as they walked. "Not just the rules, but how our people think. If you wish to be accepted here, you must understand both." The human nodded, his expression serious. "I am ready. I will do my best to learn." Their first stop was the council chamber, a grand room filled with hundreds of alien nobles. Many of them had not seen the human since his arrival. Murmurs of curiosity and skepticism rippled through the crowd as he entered. Some had tried to dismiss him as weak, others as foolish, but the princess had insisted he be present. The queen, seated on her throne at the far end of the chamber, raised her hand. Silence fell immediately. "Let us see," she said, "if the human can handle our customs and expectations." The first test was subtle yet complex. The council presented a series of diplomatic dilemmas, situations that required negotiation, careful wording, and understanding of alien social rules. In the first scenario, two distant colonies of the empire had clashed over resources. One had more advanced technology, but the other had historical rights to the land. The nobles whispered among themselves, expecting the human to falter. They leaned back in their seats, curious to see how a creature so different from them would respond. The human stood tall and looked around the room. "Respect for life and fairness must guide decisions," he said clearly. "The colony with historical rights should not be ignored. But the colony with more resources also contributes to the empire's safety. The solution must balance protection with growth. Compromise is difficult but necessary. A fair council can ensure both survive and prosper." Some nobles blinked, surprised by his clarity. They had expected hesitation, confusion, or deference. Instead, he spoke with courage and reason, and even though his words were simple, they carried weight. A particularly stern noble, with 4 eyes and green-blue skin that shimmered in the light, leaned forward. "You speak of balance, human, but how will you enforce it? Our empire relies on strategy and foresight. Words alone are not enough." The human thought for a moment, then answered, "I may not know your full history, but I know people. Persuasion, alliances, and understanding motives are stronger than force alone. If we guide both sides toward cooperation, the result is stronger than simple obedience." The princess watched with pride as the human spoke. His ideas were unorthodox for the aliens, but they showed insight. Slowly, a few of the nobles nodded in agreement. A quiet respect began to form. Next came a more physical challenge. The council had designed a test that combined agility, strategy, and quick thinking. It was a simulated environment representing a hazardous alien terrain filled with obstacles, hidden dangers, and opportunities for clever solutions. The human stepped forward, his movements deliberate. The terrain was unlike anything he had ever faced, with shifting floors, narrow ledges, and strange energy fields that reacted unpredictably. But he observed carefully, adjusting his steps, noticing patterns that even trained aliens overlooked. He used simple tools in ways that seemed odd to the aliens: ropes, small devices, and even natural objects from the environment. But his strategies worked. He avoided traps, helped others who struggled, and moved with a combination of intuition and reason that impressed the council. At one point, a rogue energy field surged near him, threatening to knock him off a narrow ledge. Instinctively, he grabbed a floating panel and used it as a shield, redirecting the energy. The other challengers, aliens much stronger than him physically, had failed at the same obstacle. The council murmured, some with disbelief, some with admiration. After the physical challenge, the human's next test was more subtle. He had to interact with the court and negotiate in small scenarios designed to expose character. He was placed in situations where deception, manipulation, or pride might tempt him. Yet he remained honest, respectful, and clear. His actions showed not only intelligence but a moral compass that many of the aliens had never encountered. By the end of the day, the human had completed every task. He had answered difficult questions, solved problems creatively, navigated a hazardous environment, and demonstrated patience and courage. The court had witnessed him not just survive but thrive. Some nobles still whispered doubts, but most had begun to see something extraordinary. The princess turned to him, her eyes shining. "You've done well," she said softly. "You are beginning to earn their respect." He smiled, but it was humble, not proud. "I only do what is right," he said. "I want to help, and I want to be worthy of your trust." The queen watched the interaction closely. Her eyes, sharp as ever, softened slightly. She had been skeptical, even wary. But the human had passed the first real test. He had impressed not only her daughter but also members of the court who had doubted him from the start. "Perhaps," she said finally, "there is more to humans than my record suggested. They are capable of reason, courage, and integrity, qualities that many of us have taken for granted." The princess smiled. "There is much more, Mother. He will show you what humans are truly capable of." The queen nodded slowly, but her gaze remained cautious. She was a ruler who had seen countless outsiders fail, and she knew better than to trust a single display of skill. Still, curiosity had replaced suspicion, and that was enough to allow the human more freedom. In the following days, the human continued to navigate the court. He learned the alien language in its formal and informal forms, adapted to cultural rituals, and gained allies among those who were open-minded. He was not perfect and he made mistakes, but he corrected them quickly and honestly. The court began to notice that his failures were rare, and when they occurred, they were met with humility rather than arrogance, a quality many aliens lacked. During this time, he and the princess grew closer. Their partnership was visible to everyone, and it became clear that their bond was not just political but personal. The princess admired his bravery and intelligence while he respected her wisdom, patience, and dedication to her people. Together, they navigated the tricky waters of court politics, showing that cooperation between species could be powerful. One afternoon, the princess took him to the royal gardens, a vast area filled with alien plants that glowed softly in various colors. Small streams of water floated above the ground, guided by energy fields, and flowers sang faint harmonic notes. "Do you see this?" she asked. "This is Lithera at peace, but it is fragile. Understanding our ways is only the beginning. To truly belong, you must protect it and the people who live here." He looked around, awe in his eyes. "It's beautiful," he said, "and I will do whatever I can to protect it. Not just because I must, but because I want to." The princess smiled, her hand brushing his. "That is why I chose you. Humans see more than just the immediate. They understand people, feelings, and consequences in ways that are different." "It is a gift," the human nodded. "I will do my best to honor that gift." Meanwhile, in the palace, whispers grew. "The human is different," some nobles said, voices tinged with respect. "He thinks, he acts, and he survives in ways we cannot predict." Others remained wary, unsure if such an outsider could ever be trusted fully. The queen observed it all, a silent smile tugging at her lips. She still had questions, but one thing was clear: the human had begun to change her court. Through courage, intelligence, and integrity, he had proven that species alone did not determine value. As night fell over the palace, the twin suns sinking below the horizon, the human and the princess stood on a balcony overlooking the city. Lights glimmered like stars across the streets, and the air was warm and fragrant. "You are earning your place here," the princess said softly. "But remember, respect must be maintained. Not all will accept change easily." "I understand," he replied, "but I also know that change is possible, and I will help bring it." The princess looked at him, a mix of pride and affection shining in her eyes. "I know you will," she said. And so, in the heart of the alien empire, a human had begun not only to prove his worth, but to show that courage, wisdom, and compassion could transcend worlds. The court would never be the same, and the story of the human who married the princess was only beginning. The morning air on the planet Viralia was crisp and sharp. Towering crystal formations jutted from the jagged terrain, catching the light of its twin suns and scattering it into dazzling patterns across the landscape. The planet was known throughout the Litheran Empire as a testing ground, a place where only the most skilled, clever, and courageous could survive. The princess and her human husband had arrived here to face the next stage of his trials, and the court had sent a small delegation to observe. "This world is dangerous," the princess said quietly, adjusting the strap of her bag. "It is used to test warriors, strategists, and diplomats. You will face both physical and mental challenges, but I know you can handle it." The human studied the terrain, his eyes scanning every crevice and formation. "I've faced challenges before," he said calmly. "This will be no different. I just need to observe and think carefully." The princess smiled, impressed with his composure. "Observation is your greatest tool here. Many who come first fail because they act too quickly. Use your mind as well as your strength." The first challenge came quickly. A narrow bridge of crystal stretched across a deep chasm. Below, streams of glowing liquid flowed, crackling with energy that could burn through even the toughest armor. Alien observers called out warnings, expecting the human to hesitate or stumble. He paused at the edge of the bridge. He studied the structure, noticing small vibrations and subtle energy patterns. Slowly, he tested each step, moving deliberately. Where many would have rushed or jumped, he adapted to the shifting crystals and crossed safely. The court watched in silence, impressed by his patience and careful observation. Once across, the next trial began. A forest of sharp metallic plants covered the valley floor. Each step could trigger a trap or alert a predator. Some of the predators were small but deadly, with claws strong enough to pierce alien armor. Others were invisible to the naked eye but could sense heat and movement. The human moved cautiously, using tools from his bag to create makeshift markers and simple traps that misled the predators. He worked quietly, analyzing patterns and learning from the environment. One by one, he avoided the hazards that had caught many trained aliens in the past. At one point, a predator leapt from the shadows, a creature with 3 glowing eyes and jagged claws. The human ducked, rolled, and used a nearby crystal shard to reflect sunlight into the predator's eyes. The creature shrieked and retreated, giving him time to move forward. The princess gasped quietly, impressed at his quick thinking. "You're amazing," she whispered. The human smiled slightly. "I just pay attention." The third trial was mental. He entered a cavern lined with alien symbols and glowing glyphs. The court had warned that this test would challenge his understanding of Lytheran history, logic, and morality. In the center of the cavern was a puzzle. 3 doors, each leading to a different path and a series of clues that required reasoning to solve. One door led to safety, one to a minor trap, and one to a dead end. The human studied the symbols carefully. He recalled what the princess had taught him about Lytheran logic and culture, but he also relied on his own reasoning and intuition. Slowly, he deduced the correct path, moving forward with quiet confidence. Every decision was deliberate, every step calculated. When he emerged from the cavern, the princess and the observing nobles were waiting. Some nodded in respect, others whispered excitedly. The human had completed challenges that even skilled aliens had struggled with, and he had done it using intelligence, courage, and creativity rather than brute strength. The final trial was the most dangerous. A sudden storm of energy and wind swept across the valley, bringing shards of crystal and blasts of raw power. The challenge was simple in theory: reach the central plateau while avoiding injury. In practice, it was almost impossible. Many experienced warriors had tried and failed. The human adjusted his gear and began moving. He studied the wind currents, the falling debris, and the unstable crystals beneath his feet. He used his understanding of physics and careful timing to move swiftly, ducking under shards and leaping across gaps. Twice he narrowly avoided being struck by falling crystal, and each time he adapted, never panicking. At one point, he saw a young Lytheran noble struggling, trapped under a fallen shard. Without hesitation, he ran forward and lifted the crystal, freeing the noble and guiding him to safety. The princess's eyes widened with pride. "He's not just clever," she said. "He's brave too." Finally, the human reached the plateau. He raised his hand in a quiet signal to indicate success. The observing nobles were stunned. Some whispered, some stared in disbelief, and some clapped slowly, unable to contain their respect. The princess approached him, her expression glowing. "You've done it," she said softly. "You faced every trial and succeeded. The court cannot deny your worth any longer." The human looked at the princess and then at the nobles. "I did not do this for praise," he said. "I did this to prove that I am worthy of your trust and to show that humans can stand alongside you, not just as outsiders, but as equals." The queen, who had been watching quietly from a distance, stepped forward. Her eyes softened as she studied the human. "You have shown courage, intelligence, and wisdom," she said slowly. "More than I expected from a human. Perhaps my records were incomplete, perhaps. There is more to your species than I knew." The human bowed respectfully. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I will continue to learn and serve to the best of my ability." Some nobles still looked wary, but the majority were silent in awe. The human had not only survived dangerous trials, but had demonstrated leadership, creativity, and moral strength. He had saved lives, solved problems, and adapted to challenges that many of the Empire's best warriors and thinkers had failed to overcome. That night, as the storm subsided and the twin moons of Viralia rose in the sky, the human and the princess stood together on the plateau. The stars reflected in the crystal formations below, creating a breathtaking display of light. "You've done more than I could have imagined," the princess said. "The court, the nobles, they are beginning to see you as I do, but there is still work to be done. Not everyone will accept change easily." The human looked out at the horizon, his expression calm. "I am ready for whatever comes next. I know that earning respect is only the beginning. I want to build trust and show that humans can contribute in ways no one expected. The princess nodded. And I will be beside you every step of the way. You are not alone. Below them, the valley was quiet now, but the whispers and stories of the humans' achievements would spread quickly. The court would return to the capital with news of his success, and slowly, the perception of humans in the empire would begin to change. As they descended from the plateau, the princess and the human walked side by side, their bond stronger than ever. The trials of Virelia had tested not only his skills but also his courage, his reasoning, and his compassion. He had shown that humans were more than just outsiders. They were problem solvers, innovators, and capable allies. Back at the palace, the queen observed them from her balcony. A small, almost imperceptible smile formed on her lips. Perhaps, she thought, the princess chose wisely. Perhaps there's more to humans than I ever imagined. The human, unaware of her thoughts, focused on the path ahead. He knew the trials were far from over, but he also knew that with courage, intelligence, and integrity, he could face anything. And with the princess by his side, nothing seemed impossible. In the heart of the alien empire, a human had begun to leave his mark, not through force or technology, but through ingenuity, courage, and the simple power of being true to himself. The story of the human who married the princess was no longer just a curiosity. It was becoming legend. The palace of Lithera was alive with movement. Courtiers whispered in hidden corners, guards patrolled with precise rhythm, and servants floated silently carrying trays of glowing fruits and rare teas. The human had returned from the trials on Virelia, his presence no longer a curiosity but a source of quiet awe among many. Yet not all were pleased. Some nobles still viewed him as an outsider, a threat to tradition and power. The princess led him through the palace corridors, her hand lightly brushing his arm. "The court is watching," she said softly. "Not all will welcome you, and some may try to undermine you. You must stay alert." The human nodded. "I understand. I will not be caught off guard." Their first encounter of the day was with a group of nobles who had been openly critical. They had prepared a series of questions meant to trap him, ethical dilemmas, political strategy scenarios, and even questions about Lithera's laws, which could easily confuse an outsider. "Human," one noble said, his voice sharp. "If a colony under your command suffers a natural disaster, and another colony competes for the same resources, how do you decide who receives aid first?" The human paused, considering the implications. "I would prioritize life and need," he said calmly. "The colony that suffers most should be assisted first. Then resources can be distributed to others in a fair and organized way. Efficiency and compassion must go together." The nobles exchanged glances. They expected hesitation or arrogance, but he spoke with clarity and fairness. Another noble pressed further. "But what if your decision displeases the council or offends powerful families?" The human met his gaze steadily. "I would explain my reasoning clearly, show evidence of fairness, and ensure that my decision benefits the empire as a whole. Respect can be gained through honesty and competence, even if not everyone agrees." Some nobles looked skeptical, but others nodded slowly. Even in the heart of an alien empire, they could recognize integrity and logic. Later that day, the human was summoned to the Hall of Strategies, a massive chamber where holographic maps displayed trade routes, military positions, and diplomatic alliances. Here, he would face his most delicate challenge yet, proving his strategic thinking and ability to mediate conflicts. The court presented a scenario. A neighboring planet had refused to honor a trade agreement, and tensions threatened war. Experienced diplomats and generals debated options, and the human was asked to provide his opinion. He studied the holographic maps carefully, analyzing supply lines, population needs, and military capabilities. Attacking immediately, he said, would risk many lives and weaken both sides. Negotiation is the stronger first step. Offer incentives, ensure fair trade, and propose a neutral mediator. If diplomacy fails, only then prepare for defense, but even then, consider strategies that minimize harm. The council was stunned. The approach was different from Litheran tradition, which often prioritized power and authority. His strategy combined logic with empathy, a human approach that considered both survival and morality. Slowly, the nobles began to see the value in his reasoning. Not everyone was convinced, however. A faction of nobles had already begun plotting to discredit him. They feared that if a human gained too much influence, it would weaken their own power. Rumors circulated of secret meetings and subtle sabotage, attempts to make the human appear incompetent in front of the queen. The princess learned of these schemes quickly. "They fear you," she said softly. "Not because you are weak, but because you are stronger in ways they do not understand. You must stay careful and trust your instincts." The human nodded. "I will. I have faced greater challenges already. I can handle this." The next morning, the sabotage began. Reports were altered, orders delayed, and misinformation was spread about his decisions. Some nobles whispered to the queen, claiming the human was reckless and unfit for court life. Others tried to trap him during private audiences with complex political questions. The human remained calm. He read through the altered reports carefully, noting inconsistencies. He cross-checked facts, asked questions, and quietly corrected errors before anyone noticed. When confronted with tricky political questions, he responded with honesty, reason, and careful consideration. His calm confidence began to turn suspicion into respect. The princess observed silently, amazed at his ability to remain composed. "You are proving that courage is not only in facing danger," she said softly. "It is also in facing deception, doubt, and fear." During one council session, a particularly aggressive noble attempted to publicly challenge him. "Human," the noble said, "how do you justify your decisions that contradict centuries of Lytheran practice?" The human stood tall, his voice steady. "Tradition is important, but wisdom comes from understanding outcomes. If a choice benefits the empire, preserves life, and strengthens alliances, it is justified. Change is not betrayal. It is progress. We can honor the past while protecting the future." The hall fell silent. Even the queen, who had seen many outsiders fail, was impressed. Some nobles bowed their heads slightly, acknowledging the truth in his words. Later, the human and the princess walked through the gardens, discussing the challenges he had faced. "You are handling the court well," she said. "But power can be subtle. Some will try to undermine you quietly. Others will test your patience repeatedly. You must always be ready." "I understand," he replied, "but I also know that honesty, intelligence, and compassion will carry more weight than force or fear. I will continue to act carefully and wisely." Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden alarm. A minor accident in the palace, an energy conduit malfunction, threatened to injure several nobles. The human rushed to the scene, quickly assessing the situation. Using tools he carried and basic principles of physics, he stabilized the conduit, preventing damage and injury. The court watched in awe. "You are extraordinary," the princess whispered, her hand on his arm. "They will no longer see you as just a human, they will see you as a leader." The queen herself arrived moments later. She studied the human with keen eyes. "You have saved lives, shown intelligence, and handled court intrigue with patience. Perhaps I underestimated your species. Perhaps there is more to humans than I realized." The human bowed. "I only wish to serve with honor, Your Majesty." That evening, the princess and the human attended a ceremonial feast. The room was filled with nobles, some still wary, others clearly impressed. Conversations buzzed with curiosity, respect, and quiet admiration. The human sat beside the princess, his demeanor calm and courteous. He listened attentively, engaged politely, and even shared insights on diplomacy and strategy that impressed several high-ranking nobles. As the feast ended, the princess turned to him. "You are earning your place here," she said softly. "Not everyone will accept it immediately, but your actions speak louder than words." The human smiled. "I am grateful for your guidance. Together we will show them that humans can contribute in ways no one expected." Over the next week, subtle changes began in the court. Whispers of admiration replaced murmurs of doubt. The human had not only survived intrigue and sabotage, but he had also earned trust through consistent intelligence, courage, and integrity. Even some of the most skeptical nobles began to approach him for advice, curious about his perspective and impressed by his reasoning. The queen observed these developments quietly. She had expected resistance, even failure, yet the human had proven himself in ways that transcended species. Her respect grew, tempered by caution, but curiosity had transformed into quiet admiration. One night, the human and the princess stood on a balcony overlooking the city. Lights shimmered like stars below, and the twin moons cast soft silver reflections across the palace rooftops. "You are changing their minds," the princess said softly. "The court will never see humans the same way again." The human looked out at the city, his expression thoughtful. "I am only showing what humans can do. They are strong, clever, and capable. I hope this is only the beginning." The princess nodded, a gentle smile on her lips. "It is, and I will be with you always. Together we can show them the power of cooperation, courage, and understanding." In the heart of the alien empire, a human had not only proven his worth but had begun to influence a court that had doubted him. Through intelligence, courage, and integrity, he had survived political intrigue, subtle sabotage, and constant scrutiny. Slowly, he was changing the way aliens viewed humans, not as outsiders, but as capable, honorable allies. And the story of the human who married the princess continued to grow, weaving its way through the empire, inspiring whispers of admiration, cautious hope, and a new understanding of what it meant to be human. The palace of Lithra shimmered under the light of its twin suns, the towers glowing like glass in the warm morning. Today the court had gathered for a celebration unlike any other. News of the human's achievements, his courage on Varelia, his clever diplomacy, and his unyielding integrity, had spread throughout the empire. Nobles, soldiers, and scholars all gathered to witness a historic moment. The princess stood near the balcony, her hand resting lightly on her husband's arm. She could see the curiosity in the crowd, the whispers of astonishment, and in some corners the reluctant admiration of skeptics. The human looked around calmly, his expression steady. He had faced danger, intrigue, and doubt, and now he stood at the center of recognition. The queen descended from her throne, her robes flowing with authority. She had watched the human closely for weeks, observing every decision, every action, every moment of courage. Now she was ready to speak. "You have proven yourself beyond doubt," she said, her voice clear and strong, echoing through the hall. "Not only to me, but to the entire empire. You have shown courage, intelligence, and honor, qualities that every Lytheran values." The human bowed respectfully. "I am honored, Your Majesty. I only wish to serve with integrity and to show that humans can contribute alongside your people." The queen's gaze softened, her sharp eyes studying him closely. She had expected cleverness and bravery, but she had not anticipated the human's moral clarity, his understanding of people, and the quiet strength he carried. "You have not only succeeded in trials of skill and mind," she said, "but you have also shown compassion, loyalty, and wisdom. You have saved lives and earned respect in ways that no one thought possible." The court murmured with agreement. Many nobles who had been skeptical now nodded quietly. Others whispered excitedly among themselves, acknowledging the human's achievements. Some even approached him, offering greetings and recognition for his success. The princess smiled brightly. "Mother," she said softly, "he is more than worthy, not only as a companion but as someone who strengthens our empire." The queen's eyes met the princess's, and a hint of a smile appeared. Then with measured voice she asked the question that had started it all. "Who is he?" The princess looked at her husband, her eyes full of affection and pride. She turned back to her mother and said, clearly and confidently, "The human I married." A hush fell over the court. The words were simple, but they carried weight. The human's identity was no longer a matter of curiosity or suspicion. It was a declaration. The princess had chosen him, and she had done so knowing the trials, the challenges, and the scrutiny he would face. She had seen his worth and had stood proudly by his side. The human bowed again, this time to the princess, then to the queen. "I am honored to be recognized," he said. "I will continue to serve with respect, courage, and wisdom as your son-in-law, as an ally, and as a friend to your people." The queen's voice softened further. "You have shown that being human is not a weakness here. Your intelligence, bravery, and integrity have proven that your species has strengths we could not have imagined. You have earned your place among us." The crowd erupted in applause. Some clapped slowly, some cheered quietly, but all recognized that this human had changed the way they saw outsiders. He had proven that courage, intelligence, and honor transcended species. The princess took his hand and led him forward. "Today," she said, "we celebrate not only the union between human and Lytheran, but also the proof that cooperation and understanding can bring strength to our empire." The celebration continued into the night. Music played, Lights shimmered across the palace, and food from distant planets was shared among nobles and guests. The human moved through the crowd, humble but confident, greeting those who approached and sharing words of wisdom and kindness. Even those who had doubted him found themselves impressed. He was not arrogant, nor did he boast of his victories. He listened carefully, gave advice when asked, and treated all with respect. Slowly, the barriers between human and alien began to fade, replaced with understanding and admiration. During a quiet moment, the princess and her husband walked to the balcony overlooking the city. Below, Litherans moved through the streets, some stopping to gaze at the palace towers, others whispering about the events they had witnessed. The city seemed brighter, warmer, and more connected than ever before. "You've changed everything," the princess said softly. "The court, the empire, even my mother. No one will see humans the same way again." The human looked out at the city, his expression thoughtful. "I didn't come to change them," he said. "I only wanted to do what was right and help where I could. But I see now that integrity, courage, and loyalty have power beyond what I imagined. Perhaps humans are stronger than anyone expected." The princess smiled. "They are, and now the empire knows it too." That night the queen approached them quietly. "I underestimated you," she admitted. "But you have proven that strength is not only in tradition or lineage. It is in action, in courage, and in the choices we make. I am proud of you, for the princess, for the empire, and for yourself." The human bowed respectfully. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I will continue to honor your trust and serve faithfully." The queen placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "You have chosen wisely," she said to the princess. "He is a human, yes, but he embodies the qualities that make a ruler, a protector, and a partner." "You have my blessing," the princess smiled, her heart full. "Thank you, Mother. Together we will strengthen the empire and build a future where humans and Litherans can stand side by side." As the palace quieted and the celebration continued, whispers of admiration spread across the empire. Stories of the human's courage, intelligence, and integrity traveled to distant planets. He had not only proven himself to the princess and the queen, but he had also begun to change the hearts and minds of an entire species. The human and the princess stood together on the balcony, looking out at the city that glimmered under the twin moons. "We've only just begun," she said softly. The human nodded. "Yes, but together we can face anything, and we will show that humans are capable of more than anyone imagined." The stars above Lithera twinkled in response, as if acknowledging the moment. In the heart of an alien empire, a human had not only found acceptance but had inspired respect, admiration, and hope. His courage, intelligence, and moral strength had bridged the gap between worlds, proving that humanity's potential could shine even among the stars. And so, the story of the human who married the princess came to be known across Lithera, not as a tale of curiosity, but as a legend of honor, bravery, and the extraordinary power of a human heart.